Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Thought Pod. My name is Fahad, and today we've got another special guest today, all the way from Barbados, and we'll be exploring his story of what took him to Barbados, from Barbados to Bali, and all the interesting things that he's done on the way. Tanaa is our special guest on the podcast today. Tanaa, welcome. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Fahad. Yeah, I'm great, man. Really excited to be here. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you for coming along, and we're really excited to sort of hear your story. Going from Barbados and then to Bali, and then all these interesting things that you've done on the way. I know we've been having a conversation earlier about the cool things that you've been up to. So, in your own words, just give us a recap of your life story. Like, where did you grow up? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, man. So yeah, I grew up in Barbados, and then I went to England to study. So yeah, I studied there for uni, and then I lived there for like 14 years in total. And then throughout that time, I like the time we were working together. Actually, that's where I was doing. I was working like research within the admissions department, and that's where I met you. And then I think we both sort of like branched out after that and went on slightly different paths. And yeah, for me, it was pretty much like I would say about 10 years in the tech industry, working from research to data to software development and then to UX design. So then that's where the research came back into full swing again. So yeah, I worked with some pretty cool tech startups during that time. I always like to work with smaller companies rather than bigger ones. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was cool. And then it was about so like 2020 when the pandemic was like proper like hitting. It was quite clear what was going to happen. So that at that moment, then um, I literally left London in like one day. My housemate, he packed all my things for me, and I went to Barbados because my dad was sick, you see. So I wanted to. I knew the pandemic would be like challenging for everybody, but I just wanted to be like closer to my dad in Barbados. So that's when I left UK pretty much with I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to anybody because it was such a abrupt decision. But then yeah, then I just sort of left. Like it wasn't
Hmm.
my plan, but I just sort of left. And then the pandemic sort of forced me to work online, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, well, I have to be near my dad. And then
yeah.
I was surprised like how well it went so quickly in the early
Hmm.
days. I was like, this is actually easier than job hunting. So then I was like, I just did that for a bit, and then I went traveling the world,
Yeah,
to take advantage of the fact that I can work online.
yeah.
Uh, Went to Latin America. I was in the States for like about 3 weeks, I think. 3 weeks in the States, Latin America. Then I went to Bali and Thailand and
Yeah.
um, many of those countries in Southeast Asia. And yeah, it was Bali where I just sort of became immersed in fitness and health, as you can
Yeah,
see with
yeah, yeah, yeah,
from my journey. And
yeah,
yeah, I literally I saw this retreat center, and then I
yeah,
just stayed there and lived there. And I was working alongside a lot of like fitness and health coaches, and from that point onwards, then I just gradually transitioned more and more. My day to day looked more and more like health and fitness
yeah.
rather than tech. So
Hmm.
now it's just yeah, like for me, I've had my own personal health journey.
Yeah,
Uh, so then that's kind of why I was made to stop and make that my number one priority, my
yeah,
health. Because
yeah, yeah,
at the point it wasn't just about making money and having an amazing career. It was literally just more about something's wrong with my health.
yeah,
So out of all the resources I have and
yeah,
what's working, what's the most effective to get me from A to B, and then
yeah,
that's what I sort of dabbled and really like fully immersed. Once I saw the results, I fully immersed into functional medicine and functional blood work.
yeah,
Uh, and that was able to be the biggest difference maker for me. So then, yeah, that's kind of why I've been posting some stuff on social media about blood
Yeah.
work,
Yeah. Yeah.
spread
Yeah.
the word, because it's helped me, and I see it help like a lot of people, and it really helps, like especially people like us that have this sort of brain to when it's like we're very evidence based. We like
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't we don't we don't want to just go to like a holistic healer and then they give us these plants and then good luck. It's more like more definitive, and for
Yeah.
like you know me, right? So I would need a little bit more like certainty and
Yeah.
evidence.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
come to that now, but I want to recap a little bit. So obviously you studied in the UK. So what brought you to the UK in the first place? And growing up, did you always want to pursue a career in computing and tech, or was there a bit of an accident? So what were your dreams and passions growing up? And how did that start, from your professional training and education perspective?
Yeah, man, good question. So, how did I study in England? Well, my dad, he grew up in the UK, so I always had a UK passport at birth, and just because of my background, my parents both met. They traveled a lot, right? So my mom is from Thailand, my dad is from Barbados, and he grew up in England and lived in multiple countries, including the Middle East, actually.
Yeah.
So then it was sort of like it was always sort of on the cards to go to the UK
Yeah.
at some point. So
Yeah.
then at that time as well, a lot of people doing like degrees. It's a huge focus on going to university. So then like I found a great uni to go to, and then it looked really good. I was really excited about it, and then I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm probably going to study here, and after that, I'm probably going to want to get a job here. So then after that, then I worked. I actually worked in London before Dundee, and then working there, I just got a feeling for what the work culture was like, and I was like, okay, well, tech is probably everything I was doing just screamed at tech. Even though I did an engineering degree, everything just seemed like utilize that part of my brain, like the problem solving. And then I was like, okay, I never really liked computers per se, but it was more like the problem solving aspect. So that's why I ended up doing UX design, because it was just how to create and make the experience nice for the other person.
Mm. And obviously, you mentioned packing up, or even not even getting a chance to pack up and sort of leave London, and obviously personal circumstances. Um, how difficult was that, or and take us through that experience. When you obviously had a set life, you were working in London. Obviously, COVID happened at the same time. Then your personal circumstances, your dad got ill. So how was that sort of experience in terms of just wrapping up everything and saying goodbye to a life that you had built and known to sort of, be part of?
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. There's actually some people that up to this day I haven't really like officially said like goodbye or what's actually happened. They just think Tanaa's just run off to Bali and not even bother saying goodbye to his friends. But it wasn't that. It's just that it's been so overwhelming at that time. If you rewind what that the world was like at that moment in time, it was more like just a split decision because I had pretty much the day I left London, I think if I didn't leave that day or the day after, then I would not have been able to leave like
Mm-hmm.
for like ages. So then I was like, okay, like this is like maybe not life and death is a bit dramatic, but this is really important. So I just had to do it. And like what happened is the company I was working at for 4 years, I had already left them. But so yeah, I went to Barbados already for like holiday. But so I was coming back to apply for a job in London because all this time I was still like paying rent for my flat, right? So then I was like, okay, well, I'll just come back to my flat and then start job hunting. But then when COVID happened, then I was like, um, it's just not going to be enjoyable living in London. It's probably going to be it's cold and I'm probably going to be working from home all the time, and it's going to be rubbish. So I was like, yeah, it's not that wasn't so hard to say no to be honest. Um, it was because I was like doing UX design. It was a really good opportunity for me to build up my portfolio as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was so yeah. But logistics wise, my friend helped me pack. But yeah, that it was a bit gnarly. It was a bit of like emotionally just quite
Yeah.
intense. Seeing my dad sick,
Yeah.
saying goodbye to the my country for 14 years,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then all of a sudden requiring like a key requirement to build a business online versus a job in person. That
Yeah.
was highly stressful.
Yeah. And you're obviously the sort of person that has moved quite a lot. So you moved to the UK to study, and then you built a life there, an identity there. Then you packed up and you left, and then you've been traveling, and then you lived in Bali for a while. In terms of your own identity as a globe trotter or as an individual, how easy or how difficult it is navigating through different places, or do you sort of enjoy that transient nature of the life that you've built?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I just view myself as a human because it's I think when we look at the world today, we're all human. We all should have like equal like access and rights to like everything, right? So I don't really I know it's like not the popular answer, but everyone is so obsessed with identity these days. But
Yeah,
I'm just a human, and all my goal is really to be the best human I can be. So it's traveling was always going to be like on the cards,
yeah,
but I I don't really identify with like one. Hey, I'm going to live in Bali for the rest of my life yet.
yeah,
But
yeah,
well, I
yeah,
go like, right now in Barbados. It's really calm, and it's a really great place to get some really good deep focus work, and it's really beautiful. And I can spend some time with my mom as well, so that's a
yeah,
huge consideration.
yeah,
Um, so I, I do enjoy it being transient, but I do actually do crave a lot of stability as well. Like
yeah,
I like the ability to have an office and have like two
mm,
screens and
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
all the shops are the same, and I know where to go. I don't need to spend
yeah,
ages a ton of
yeah,
research.
yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, when it's a certain season, then it is nice to explore a little bit. But then it's like for me, that's more like holiday mode, and then it's okay,
yeah,
cool, now back to
yeah,
stability,
yeah,
because the
yeah,
work I do requires a lot of focus. So
yeah.
like that stability is quite essential.
And what would you say, in terms of your life as it has been so far, what has been the best part about it, and what has been the most challenging aspect of this moving around?
The best part of moving around is seeing so many beautiful parts of the world and connecting with people from all walks of life. So I think like it's impossible to get that perspective unless you travel,
Yeah,
because even like when we were in Dundee, right? Because it was at the university. Like I'm from Barbados, you're from Pakistan, then someone else is like, okay, most of the people we work with were Scottish, to be fair,
yeah,
but
yeah,
but
yeah,
then you might meet someone from like Nigeria, or then
yeah,
someone from Spain. So
yeah,
that's what I liked about that sort of city. So it's just sort of like when you travel, it's basically like that, but just like everywhere, and then different sets of people. And then when you go to a place like Bali, you just realize, wow, like people here just think totally different. Like all the limiting beliefs that people will have from another walk of life, like let's say in like London, and everyone does a 9 to 5 job there, and all the things they think they can't do. There's a whole bunch of people out the opposite side of the world doing all of these things with ease, right? So it just broadens your perspective. So I would say that's the benefit. The hard the hardest bit about it is um, it's not for people that don't like change. So sometimes I am a bit resistant to change. Sometimes I'm not a huge fan of change. Sometimes I like what I like. I'm a creature of
yeah,
habit, and I like stability. So from that perspective, it's not the best. But um, I think the key to having the best experience is just to be honest about who you are as a person, and then just however you decide to move around and stay around, then you just you plan it really well so it plays to your strengths.
Yeah. And see, one of the things that you talked about was, like moving from obviously a stable job, a stable career to working remotely, starting your own business and running things online yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Obviously, since COVID, that has become really, really popular, working from home or starting your own business, consulting, these kind of things. How easy was it to sort of leave a stable 9 to 5 job where you get paid to actually starting something on your own, finding customers, clients, etc.? How was that experience like?
Yeah, it's like it's up and down. Some when it's going well, it's going really well, and then when it's like you're going through a challenging season, then it's like it definitely feels like really hard. But in total, it's I would say it's much better to have the freedom. So for me, I prefer to have the the choice to make more money. So just you have more sovereignty, more earning potential. You have more of an opportunity to connect with a lot of varying brands that you really probably like it's more like a deeper connection with, whereas as opposed to just like one company. So the stability is good, when you have a paid 9 to 5 job, definitely. You meet some really great people there as well, because you're staying there for a while, so then you get a chance to really build some good connections there.
Yeah,
But the downside, I think, is that it's you just develop so much further as a person when you I view it like a bit more like a high risk, higher reward game when you work for
hmm,
yourself. It's like now all of a sudden you have your earning potential really is as high as your mind will let it be. um, and then you're not really negotiating for a pay rise. You're just like this is the price of the service I do, so you have every incentive to create the best service, so you can raise the price, and then you may get clients with a certain campaign, or you might not at all, right? And that's the game. So it's more like a different mindset to like, rather than I think where it was before, where my mindset was when I have a 9 to 5 job, it's like, how can I keep my job, right? Whereas when you're going the more entrepreneurial route, it's a bit more like, how can I play to win, right? What does winning look like to me? And I think there's tons of gurus on the internet telling you this is what winning looks like, and you're nobody if you don't have a Bugatti. But for me, it's like everyone has like their own version of what winning looks like, and it actually doesn't have to be anything like a Bugatti. It actually could just be more time, for example. Like I get
yeah,
to spend time with my family more. Like, you know what I mean? So I think
yeah.
it's really important to determine what that is. But back to the point, when you work for yourself, you have more of a chance to do that.
Yeah. And talking about winning, what does winning look like for you, and what inspires you in life, and what has driven you in life? And has that stayed constant, or have you found new inspirations and carved your journey along the way?
Wow, yeah, great question. What does winning look like for me? It's not a Bugatti. Spoiler alert.
Is it a Ferrari?
No, it's not any of those cars actually. But I mean, obviously, if I had one, then that's
You
not
wouldn't
a
mind.
problem. I'm sure I'll make use of it, right? or
Yeah,
or sell it. But yeah, for me, like it's more like freedom, to be honest, because I've seen some people with like tons of money, and then their mental and physical health is terrible. Like, and this comes from my time in the health and fitness industry, like working with people, and on paper their job is absolutely fantastic, but then it's like, to be honest, in total, I don't really envy their life, right? So then it's like, okay, why is that? Well, freedom and health, you got to feel, for me, feeling good is really important. So a lot of that is based around the habits that you have. So healthy habits and a really strong mind and good resilience. So Like for example, when my dad passed away, then it was I've been unable. That would have flattened me if I didn't have developed some good character over the last
Yeah.
couple of years. So there's that side of things. There's a physical side of things, a mental side of things. But just having the freedom, and of course, good good income.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be the biggest house, the biggest Bugatti. It doesn't need to be anything anywhere near that. It's
Yeah.
just more enough to live the lifestyle you want, and you don't need to look at the bill. You don't need to have that. So you're still. So for me, it's basically an abundance mindset,
Yeah.
and then serve like business through service to others. So genuinely making
Yeah.
change and making those like big, like oh my god, I changed your life type case
Yeah.
studies for people that you work for or work with.
Yeah. I mean, I was reading a quote somewhere which said you have 100 problems, but if you don't have your health, you just have one problem, and then
Yeah.
nothing else matters. And that really hit home. It is true. We have so many things that we worry about and so many things that we are concerned about, but if you don't have your health, then everything else is secondary or in the back burner. Doesn't matter at all. You want to fix your health, and yeah. So yeah, that brings us nicely to the next phase of my questions to you around health and fitness. Have you always been enthusiastic about health and fitness, or is that something that you've developed over time? Talk us through that journey.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
so
we
what
used to play badminton in Dundee.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even I would classify Dundee as one of my unhealthier seasons, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was yeah, but it was good. It was good to live that
Dark
life.
ages.
Yeah, it was literally dark. It was literally the weather is literally dark,
Yeah.
and it was. But like you would see me always being active, always going to the gym, even in those days where literally no one was doing that in the office. I was always that way inclined. So
Yeah.
um, I think it's my mom. It's my parents. They worked in the medical field, so both of them were nurses. So yeah, my mom practiced nursing all the way until retirement, and my dad, probably until like yeah, probably 10 to 20 years. So um, my mom she had health challenges, so um, she went to doctors and it wasn't really super helpful. I'm not hating on doctors or anything. Many of them are great people, but she was not able to find the answer she was looking for. So because of her medical background, in terms of being a nurse, she was able to she would put a research hat on and read like certain bits of research. She would look online for stuff, fact check stuff, and she would come up with ways to normalize her health. This is way before the surge of like functional medicine and blood work. This was about 20 years ago. But yeah, I saw her health transform. So I think that planted a seed for me, right? So being in the UK, most people aren't really that health conscious. People go and have like 20 pints in a weekend and they would deep fry a Mars bar, like so it's like the
Haven't
opposite.
actually tried a deep fried Mars bar. Have you?
I
Never
went
got around.
my last day in Dundee. I went to the chippy and I asked to get one, but they didn't
Yeah,
have one. They said I can go and buy a Mars bar and then bring it to
they'll
them.
do it.
But it's something like that. I want it to be quick,
Yeah,
because if by the time I buy the Mars bar, I'd be like, this is actually a really bad idea. So
yeah, yeah,
be fast.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I don't
yeah,
change my mind. So
yeah,
yeah, but anyway, I've always been that way inclined. But then it's basically, I think what changed things is when I was working for myself, because
yeah,
when I was younger, I'm 38 now. When I was younger, I could get away with battering my body from both ends. I could go out all night and come back and train like really hard, and then stay up all night and then go to work the next day, and I could do all of that, no problem. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a bit like when you were at uni and you stay up all night
Yeah.
to do an exam. It was a bit like that.
Yeah.
Like, but then the older I got, then even though I see like drinking culture never changes,
Yeah.
especially in the UK. Like I found that with me, I could feel my body changing. You know, like I couldn't really get away with as much.
Yeah.
So especially when I started working for myself, because then all of a sudden now the hours are like way longer than 9 to 5. So
Yeah.
there's that, and then you got to train as well, and then you have family things, which is actually requires a lot of bandwidth as well. So
Yeah.
then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you're just being pulled in like 20 different directions. So unless you have great health, then you can end up being burnt out for like a week or two, and then all
Yeah.
that stuff you thought you had to do, then you can't do it at all, and then you're just constantly playing catch up. So it's a bit like what you said, like you you can have 100 problems, but when you have a health problem, you only have one. So I experienced that a few times, and
Yeah.
that's really what changed me from having an awareness to, okay, like this will be my life now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now you're obviously coaching as well online. You mentioned
Yeah.
how is that? Obviously, like in my head, obviously, getting personal training, etc. A lot of it is face to face. You have someone in the gym that is helping you with the angles and weights and really pushing your boundaries. But obviously, there's an angle to diet and mindset and your mental strength really. So how do you complement that, and where are your clients from, and what have you learned personally from this experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, you're right. A lot of PT is traditionally very like face to face. This is the standard model for it. But then now there's been since like the emergence of YouTube, it's just been the emergence of the online coach, which is a good and a bad thing. But what I will say about, I don't know, so like if I was to put myself in like a potential client's shoes, when I've had a PT before, then it's like even if I'm training, I can be training at my best, perfect technique, perfect form, and everything. But then if I'm just dropping the ball in the kitchen,
Yeah. Yeah.
then you might as well not even bother with the
Yeah.
one-on-one PT session.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
almost doesn't matter. Like if you're gonna work out like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then you're gonna go in the kitchen
Yeah.
and do all of that work, because what I find is people don't always have the best awareness of
Yeah.
what's the biggest difference, especially nutrition wise and movement wise as well. So the online space is, yes, it's not face to face in the sense that we're not like next to each other, but you can bridge the gap through like calls like this, for example,
Yeah. Yeah.
regular and frequent communication, and then booked plan like brainstorming sessions. But the main thing is to have a 360 of that person's
Yeah.
life, and really just really get that person, and to just the whole selling point is not like with like PT, it's a commodity, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Who's a PT in my area? Cool. Oh, this guy on the gym floor, he looks like a
Yeah.
nice guy. How much
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
charge? Okay, cool. Let's book
Yeah.
2 sessions in a week. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then like there's no accountability to be like, well, I'm gonna get from here to here in X time.
Yeah.
So like an online program, the whole point really is to be like, okay, like you're here, and I'm gonna help you get to there. And then what is there? Okay, what's the constraints you're dealing with in your daily life?
Yeah.
Typical client, they're not a shredded man on Bali with 12 hours a day to go to the gym. So then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, understanding who that person is, what's their daily constraints, and making the workouts more practical for someone in that type of life, and making the meal prep like as how can they get the best food into their body consistently in the most habit forming way. So it's accountability is a huge piece of that. Planning. So first, winning game plan. What's a great game plan? Where do you
Yeah.
want to get there? Based on that, then actually planning that game plan for that person. And then it's always best to start a little bit like strong,
Yeah.
because you stack some wins up early, and then you just, it's like muscle memory. You just get used to this, right? And then um, basically track those habits to make sure it's high performing habits as well.
Yeah.
Because someone just coming through the door who hasn't really trained like hard in like maybe 5 years,
Yeah.
it's not going to be able to do what I'm doing, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
all about a step ladder approach, and then based on how we review the performance, then taking it up a level or down a level depending
Yeah.
on where that person's at. But it's really the fundamental really is to really understand the person. um, and yeah, I feel like my experience being that person working in a corporate type setting
Yeah.
has really helped because it allows me to empathize with prospects.
Yeah. And is there something that you've sort of, having worked with so many different people, so many different stories and circumstances and body types or even physiologies, or ethnicities even, something that you may not have been aware of before that you sort of learned and began to sort of appreciate about the world of health and fitness, or anything that sort of stands out for you in terms of your key learning as a coach and as a trainer?
Yeah, so I would say what some people might not understand from the outside looking in is they might see a before and after of some guy and think, "Wow, that's incredible."
Yeah.
Um, like, why am I not moving as far forward as this person over here? And sometimes it's like this is the importance of framing, so that you're like road mapping for your client so that they know where you're at, because everybody is not the same, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason
Yeah.
why Bob over here can get really like lean and shredded very quickly in like
Yeah.
4 weeks, because
Yeah.
he actually, prior to the program, like 20 years ago, he used to train a lot. So now
Yeah.
to come back in again, it's just reigniting that, and he's just coming in for an accelerator. So it's just like,
Yeah.
rather than waste time, coming off and on and not having that accountability, he's coming into like razor focus, like how do we get you from A to B as fast as possible. So someone else that's not been in the gym as much or has a bit more stubborn body fat, then it might take them longer. Or if you're at a higher level of body fat percentage for like longer, um, it might take a little bit longer, right, for you. Or if you put on excess weight and then you drop the first bit off quite quickly, you might actually reach a certain point where that at that moment, um, you're still doing a lot of great things, but at that moment, then the body fat percentage isn't coming off quite as quick. So this is why it's important for regular touch points, and to ask the person how like far they think they've come, because sometimes then it's great to just say, okay, cool, now we just sort of we have a bit of a maintenance phase right now, so that you're, mentally speaking, your head is still in the game, you're not getting discouraged, maybe a week or two, and then cool, then we go hard again when you're like, okay, my mood and my energy is better, and then it's cool, like,
Yeah.
then now we can go again. So like basically everybody is an individual. That's the biggest thing. It's not just like there's no like world's best workout, all
Yeah.
this you can Google, you can put it in Chat GPT, right? Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you have this like expert eye over you with
Yeah.
that back and forth details? Be like, okay, cool. This is what's really going on here, and this is where you are in relation to your roadmap, and then this is what you need to do, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, the health and fitness industry is obviously massive, even from a pharma side as well. We're seeing the emergence of drugs like Ozempic and all of those kind of areas, fat loss pills, and all these things that people are putting in their bodies. Then you've got the other side where there's so much confusion, even in terms of supermarkets. High protein, and then you're reading the labels, and it's full of sugar. How do you navigate as a person today? Like, how do you navigate through all of these challenges where, like, if you're buying meat, then it has to be a particular kind. If you're buying vegetables, then so there's so much confusion. there's so many influencers. Obviously, people listen to extreme diets on either side. There's carnivore, there's all sorts of other things going on there. So what is your advice to people normally? Like how can you navigate through this confusion, when you look around finding answers?
Yeah. That's. I think that's $1 million question there, Fahad. I think that's what we're all experiencing right now because everyone is a guru these days. There's a million bits of advice on the internet, and I myself, I used to go on Instagram and save posts to see, oh, this might work for me. But to be honest with you, the biggest difference maker for me has been, acknowledging that one man's food is another man's poison. So,
Yeah.
and this is why, like for me, why I went down the blood work route because right now, the carnivore diet's being very, it's great for social media. It creates that sort of like, it's controversial enough to get a lot of views and stuff, and of course it's going to work for a lot of people, right? Because it's eliminating a lot of bad stuff. But if you have bile insufficiency, that could destroy you, right? That could have a really adverse effect on your digestion and your
Yeah.
assimilation of a lot of the proteins. So, for example, that's why it's important to do it. It doesn't mean that you have to do functional blood work, but it's more about like, hey, like who are you as the person, right? Because some people are like on a plant-based diet, for example, and then they're really deficient in like B12 or some really other essential, like vitamins and minerals that
Yeah.
they need,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's really just about one man's food is another man's poison. So just with all the gurus, I would say the proof is in the pudding,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the doctor, if the doctor says um, everything is fine and you need to do this, and if you still feel like shit, then
Yeah.
that 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 means something's not working, right? So if the doctor says you're fine, or if you have the world's best health coach and they say you need to do this, and you're not getting the results that you want, then something is missing. So I would advise a deeper, in-depth approach as to in your physiology, because there's no point like cutting out sugars if you're like, well, no, that's not true. Like there's no point, like you shouldn't be eating a lot of sugars anyway, but there's no point having this extreme approach to like having the occasional sweet here and there
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
under the hood everything along those lines metabolically is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Most people should cut down sweets for sure, yeah, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's just an example. So it really just about like where at what state your body is at right now, and what's
Yeah. Yeah.
the most optimal lifestyle and diet for you. And that starts with nutrition and food, supplements, and even your environment as well.
Yeah. And in terms of blood works, like what are the main markers that people should look out for? Like what are the main things that, are important to take into consideration when planning any sort of interventions or coaching plan or exercise or diet plans?
Yeah, good question. So it's basically if you went to the doctor, you'll just get like a standard blood test, like
Yeah.
does this person have diabetes or is there something like really like off? But um, I'm not sure if you saw my posts on Instagram about functional versus conventional medicine, but functional blood work, it's still within the conventional ranges of what's recommended, but it's more tighter
Okay.
margins. So
Hmm.
it's more like a top X% for each biomarker. So um, when I work with people, I like to ask what part of the world they're from, and then we can analyze up to like 100 biomarkers, right? So just from key areas of the body, right? Like full blood count, then you've got the lipid profile, you've got the liver markers, kidney markers as well, thyroid. With men, male sex hormones, that's really important. Stuff like B12 as well, just to like a lot of these things are connected. So yeah, you can have over 100 different biomarkers, but those are just a few like key areas. But the whole point here is that every system is connected to each other.
Yeah.
You know, if you have if you have like lower than optimal testosterone right now, which is very commonplace, then that's going to have an impact on like other elements, other systems within the body. So that's why it's good to kind of just see the full picture and then be like, okay, cool. Well, the biggest health handbrake you have based on your blood work is, you know, like SIBO. So your gut microbiome is actually got more. It's more like bad bacterial overgrowth, right? So you've
Yeah.
got like SIBO, for example. So that with low stomach acid and low assimilation of B12, that's going to have a whole impact on other. It's going to cascade into other areas of your body and even potentially affect your testosterone, right? And then that is going to impact your drive. So your ability to get stuff done, work longer days, um, train hard in the gym, not have brain fog. All of that stuff there is all connected. So yeah, to answer your question, like you know, it also it's very. Those are just examples, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
depends what part of the world the individual is in. So
Yeah.
then I would contact labs and be like, "Have you got these biomarkers?" And it's like maybe if we have certain ones they don't have, then we can okay for their first test, then maybe do without, and then next time um, get that tested as well.
Interesting. And my final question to you, Tana, is what is next for you in the next, let's say, 5 years? And also, what, in your view, would the world of health and fitness look like in 2050? Would people be more healthier? You know, if you had a magic sort of glass to look at the world in 2050, how, in your view, would it look like?
Wow, that's a tough question. Well, okay. So I'll answer the first question first. So yeah, for me, the next 5 years, I just really, right now, my day to day is like it's more gravitating towards advanced blood work, like functional blood work and functional medicine, as opposed to you know, I'm sure you've seen on my social media, a lot of the stuff I've been doing is a lot of before and after transformations. You know, getting guys to drop body fat, build lean muscle. So for me, my focus more is the bigger problem that I'm more like called to answer is I just want to help guys that are doing it for all the right reasons. Like they're they're over 35 and they just want to be the best version of man they can be. So the best provider, the best leader, the best family man, the best man for their wife, the best man for their kids, and that comes with having like optimal health under the hood, right? Whatever level they're at, they'll just be even better with optimal health. And if they're struggling, then getting them up there. And if they're already like, no one's going to be firing on all cylinders with nothing to improve, right? So, but I just really want to help a lot of the guys really just step more into their greatness by just having that deep interest to solve a bigger problem. Because for me, as someone who got into this field for that reason, that's extremely satisfying to give that to someone. And I think the world needs more like evidence based, a bit more accountability in
Yeah.
in coaching and health practitioners. I find, to be honest with you, I don't think doctors have enough accountability. I think they can you can go to an appointment, spend hundreds of dollars, and then be in exactly the same position or
Hmm.
worse, right?
Yeah.
And the doctor has no accountability. So I see a bit of a counterculture, which the downside of that is there's a lot of like gym bros saying, hey, like, you know, I got shredded eating steak for like 90 days and then everyone just eats steak and then it
Yeah.
works for some people and then it doesn't. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not a fan of that. I think it's more evidence based, more personalized, more accountability in the field for both doctors and fitness influencers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tana, for joining us on this episode of the Thought Pod and sharing your insights. Obviously, health and fitness is an area of interest for everyone. And obviously, your own journey was quite interesting. going from tech and then amalgamating that with your own passion for health and fitness, and actually sharing that with so many people who might be doing amazing things in their own careers, but they might have that missing link of being the best version of themselves. So thank you for joining me today and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me, Fahad. Really good to see you, man. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me as well. Great chat
Absolutely.
today.
And thank you to all the viewers for tuning in as well. Do drop your comments and feedback as well for us to take into account. Thank you so much. Take care.